So today we're going to be telling the history of Gurkha. It's going to be a very convoluted story. Um, Lots of craziness. It's going to be like Jerry Springer. So it's going to be a fun time to enjoy it even further. We're going to be smoking this Manduro 15-year Cellar Reserve from Gurkha. And let's go ahead and cut this, light this, and we'll then get into the history of Gurkha. There we go. Okay, before we get into telling the story of Gurkha, let me just restate, as I have in my earlier videos, that we're going to do a voiceover here because when I'm smoking a cigar that I love, the next most important thing to me is sharing that with family and being able to sit around and have conversation on the back patio and just enjoy this period of time. So let's go ahead and get into the story of Gurkha. The year was 1814. There was a war going on between the United States and Britain, known as the War of 1812. Norway declared independence. Napoleon has massive successes in battles over Russia. During this year, he's going to end up resigning and passing control to his son before being caught and overthrown completely and sent to the island of Elba off the coast of France. British forces destroy the Library of Congress, and the Star-Spangled Banner gets written and published by Sir Francis Scott Key. Now, also in 1814, colonial British soldiers working for the East India Company encounter warriors in the mountains of Nepal. This was during a push for northern expansion of the empire. These fierce fighters were called Gurkhas. Over a short period of time, the two forces really grew to respect each other. The British admired the history, honorable tactics, and fighting prowess of the Gurkhas. After fighting ceased, the British ultimately recruited these Gurkhas to fight for the crown, and for more than 2 centuries, this relationship has been maintained. It was these Nepalese warriors for who the Gurkha cigars were named. Originally, British soldiers throughout the colonies began constructing their own handmade cigars and sharing them with each other. The soldiers were of the opinion that their cigars far exceeded what were considered local in the colonies. And what better name to use than that of the greatest soldiers that served the crown? The craft of making Gurkhas almost disappeared over time until 1988 when, while on vacation in Goa, India, Kazad Hanasotia, we'll just call him Kazad for the rest of this video because I don't want to fumble over the name, stumbled into a couple of Portuguese vendors who were selling a brand of cigar named Gurkha. Quoting Kazad, "One thing led to another, and I ended up buying their entire business from them for $143. I bought all of their cigars and also their company name, which was Gurkha. At that time, they were a dead company, so I decided to buy them out. The vendors really were struggling, and they were at the end of their dream of having their cigar business, so it was a perfect time for them to sell." Kazad was in the watch industry at the time, and he bought all the cigars as corporate gifts for his clients. He started giving the cigars out to all of his duty-free suppliers, and they liked it. Pretty soon, they started asking him for more. That started his push to build up the brand that became Gurkha today. Not knowing much about cigars or the industry, Kazad began studying the market, trying to find a way to figure out how to get going. It wasn't long before he realized that there weren't any really upscale cigars that combine not only a premium cigar, but a premium experience. Back in those days, in the 80s, Davidoff cigars led the pack at a whopping $8. They really didn't have something that would be an ultra high quality cigar out there. So he decided to make the most exclusive line of cigars with a focus on quality rather than quantity. It was the foresight of this concept that created the market for ultra premium cigars, and it would eventually revolutionize the industry. Kazad has been quoted as saying, "In those days, I came out with a cigar that cost almost $12 and people thought I was crazy. Every other cigar that came out in the 80s was between $2 and 25 cents. At that time, there were very high-end cigars, the Davidoffs, that came out. It would be $5 or $6. This is right before the cigar boom of the early 1990s. Once again, one thing led to another, and we came out with a $12 to $14 cigar. Eventually, we came out with a $5,000 box. People thought we were nuts, but now that same box sells for over $20,000. The very first cigar he came out with was the Grand Reserve, and it was infused with Louis XIII cognac, retailed for an unheard of amount of $12. Worried that people wouldn't buy the cigars, retail shops and lounges made Kazad agree that he would buy them back if they didn't sell. It turns out they did sell, and the market was forever changed. Not long after, they would go on to create the world's most expensive cigar and actually produce it, called His Majesty's Reserve, and for a good reason. There were fewer than 100 boxes produced each year. These gems were made for retail for around $15,000 a box of 20 sticks. So much for the $12 cigars. An entire bottle of Louis XIII cognac was infused into the 20 cigars making up the box. In addition to this super exclusive line, Gurkha now had some extremely high-end and rare small batch cigars that sell for $150,000 to $250,000 a box. And that's not all. The top box that they produced is known as the Royal Courtesan, and it retails for, get this, $1.36 million a stick. It's an expensive cigar ever created. Handmade in the Dominican Republic and Honduras. Each cigar is filled with rare Himalayan tobacco, and it's been only watered with Fiji water. Then it's wrapped with gold leaf and held by a diamond-studded band worth 5 carats before getting infused with Remy Martin's Black Pearl Louis XIII, which goes itself for $224,000 a bottle. All of the artisans are also made to work blindfolded so as to avoid distraction, and only a select few rollers are permitted to construct the cigars. Talking about a perfection, but then again, if you're paying that much for a smoke, it better be. Now, on these courtesans, nobody knows if one has ever actually been sold. There's just a few made, and to common knowledge, they were used as gifts to dignitaries and world leaders to gather favor for Gurkha cigars. I really don't think or have heard of somebody actually purchasing these. However, His Majesty's Reserve at $1,000 to $1,500 a stick, which is now the going price, that I have heard of people buying and enjoying that cigar. Typical buyers of cigars like these range from Middle Eastern royalty like the Sultan of Brunei to CEOs of 500 or Fortune 500 companies. A lot of these people buy them as corporate gifts, wedding gifts, birthday gifts, and so on. Another way that Kazad and Gurkha changed the cigar industry is with the packaging itself, and this was key. The packaging goes hand in hand with appealing to what was at the time a market of ultra-premium cigar smokers. As Kazad stated, when I came into the industry, quite honestly, all I saw was a bunch of crap. People used those cheap paper cigar boxes, and the packaging was boring. With that in mind, Kazad created some of the highest quality and most intriguing cigar boxes ever made. Cigar bands, modernized the overall appearance of the cigar branding, everything from $200,000 boxes of cigars that come in lavishly handmade humidors to $200 boxes of cigars that come in solid wood chests with eye-catching designs and insignias. Kazad started the trend with Gurkha that has never looked back, and the entire industry has come to copy. From that first $12 cigar that changed the market, Gurkha now has over 40 different lines of cigars. They also have some of the lines that are only available in brick and mortar locations, and some lines are only available online. This is primarily due to Kazad wanting to keep the institution of the cigar shop strong and healthy and not let it become completely subjective to the online business. From the faded roots of what amounts to a $143 drunken vacation purchase in 1988 stands today a company built on the foresight of Kazad and his impressive Gurkha team that has gone on to revolutionize the cigar industry. From the very first person to act on the idea that a $12 cigar would actually be purchased by consumers, to using innovative modern packaging to make it all a reality, Kazad and company, as it appears on the Gurkha cigar bands, has made quite a name for himself. For knowing nothing about the cigar industry at the beginning, to now being one of its most recognized ambassadors, Kazad has turned Gurkha into one of the world's preeminent cigar companies. Now, sit down and buckle up, because this is where it starts to really get crazy. On June 10th, 2020, Kazad, founder of the company, would resign from his position as chairman of Gurkha. This comes after a crazy week following a social media post that appeared on Kazad's social media accounts. On June 6, Gurkha posted a response message on its social media to what was causing all of the uproar, where they stated that it appeared that Kazad's private Facebook account had been hacked. Gurkha apologized for the erroneous post on Kazad's private Facebook account and stated that since its posting had been deleted, and the post in no way reflected the beliefs of the company. However, it was not Kazad that posted it, but his Facebook had been hacked. So, what did he post? Well, in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, Kazad apparently put on Facebook this statement: "Why do Black Lives Matter only when killed by whites? Shouldn't their lives matter when killed by other black people too?" To add insult to injury, Kazad then shared a meme by the apparel brand Heroic Outfitters about George Floyd's criminal past. Cigar Aficionado at the time published this: after a controversial Facebook post regarding Black Lives Matter sparked internet outrage, Gurkha Cigars founder Kazad has stepped down as company chairman. The announcement was made Wednesday via corporate statement. Kazad claimed that Gurkha Instagram feed and Twitter to his account was hacked and denied that he ever posted the inflammatory comments. Requests by Cigar Aficionado for the interview with Kazad were denied. He ceded management of the company to Jim Colucci, who was named president of Gurkha in early 2019, and according to the press release, he has now assumed the role of CEO. When asked if Kazad would remain the owner of the company, a company spokesman said that the CEO is working to sell Kazad's share. He still owns a portion of the company. Future Gurkha packaging will no longer bear the K. Hanasotia name once current production inventory runs out. So, by the way, if you have any Gurkha cigars that have K. Hanasotia on it, I would be very careful about smoking those. They may be very collectible. We are outraged and saddened by the content of previous posts made on Kazad's personal social media accounts It in no way reflects the position and beliefs of the company, its founding mission, or its employees, the release said. And that is where we are today. Kazad. Let's look at this. He buys a company. He decides to market that company. And there's been a lot of critiques about this journey that the company was on, primarily because when it started, people felt that although it was extremely well priced, the quality of the cigars weren't there yet. And it took a long time to get the quality of the cigars to a truly ultra premium level. Many people felt that the expensive price was a gimmick to bring people in. It's also been stated that Gurkha is a marketing and branding company that just happens to sell cigars. That I've heard that statement quoted over and over. Well, here's the thing. I didn't smoke any cigars for the beginning of the history of Gurkha, so I can't attest to that. I do know, having worked in luxury retail, that a lot of people that aren't able to purchase at that level tend to come up with rationalizations as to why that product really doesn't deserve that price to comfort themselves. And I see this a lot. And it's human nature. Now, is that what occurred here? I don't know. Were the cigars better than they were initially reviewed? I don't know. What I do know is that the Gurkha cigars that I have tried, although not $1,000 a stick, still fairly expensive, so far I've enjoyed all of them, and I will continue to review them. I do absolutely know that if Gurkha did not put such an emphasis on the bands and the packaging and the boxes, that the rest of the industry would still be back in the 80s, primarily doing really, really cheap bands and really, really cheap paper cigar boxes. It just wasn't a thing until Gurkha opened that up and started bringing us the art side of the cigar industry and creating that whole rich experience. Another thing is Kazad's personal beliefs. Was his social media accounts hacked? Probably not, whether you agree with him or not. It's probably, well, it definitely was not the right thing to do. And the effect on the Gurkha company was significant. That's why a lot of shops today have a fairly small Gurkha selection, here in my area anyway, in Central Texas, throughout the state of Texas. It really affected their following here. Globally, I don't think it had nearly as big of an impact, but here in the States, it did affect business. So that's Gurkha. This is our first history story of the tobacco industry. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please leave me feedback and comments so we can make this better as we go along. And I can't wait to show you what we're going to be doing next. Thank you.